My guest on this episode of the Refinery Podcast is Andy Sharp, who owns Sharp Fitness. I think you'll enjoy hearing his story of transformation and his entrepreneurial journey. But more important than that, you'll hear how he's been a pivotal person in my own health journey and in that of many others. Andy has been a natural bodybuilder, an actor, a model, and now is helping people of all ages transform their lives through his program. Let's get into it. Okay, Mr. Andy Sharp, thank you so much for being at least remotely in the Refinery studio with me today and joining me on the Refinery Podcast. And listen, you've been very influential in my life in probably more ways than you know, but hopefully over the next several minutes, you'll hear even more about the reasons why, which I don't think will be surprising to you. But let's just talk about kind of how we met and how we got connected. It's funny, you and I both live in the state of South Carolina, but I did not know that. All I knew was that my brother, Toby, and his wife, Kim, who live in the state of Pennsylvania, they were losing weight and they were losing it fast and they were feeling good. And, about every time my brothers and I'm the youngest of 7 and I've got 3 brothers. And every single day, my brothers and I, and on one channel, we have a video chat that we do. Our whole family has a video chat on another channel. But so we're always talking and, keeping up with each other's lives. And man, it was like his life was changing for good. Mine was not, and we'll get to that later. But, so eventually he says, "Hey, look, let me introduce you to Andy." And so we decided to do it. My wife, Kate, and I talked about it and said, look, if we're going to do this, we got to do it together, what we're about to discuss here. And so I got connected with you and found out you actually live in South Carolina. So so let's see, how long have you and I been connected? I know you and Kate were together for 3 months on what we're talking about, but how long?
Yeah, we just finished 4 months yesterday, Rick. We spoke yesterday about your 4-month journey that would have started back in June, maybe?
July the 8th.
July 8th.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So 4 months now.
Yeah, nice. Okay, well, look, I think that if anyone was paying attention, they could just go back to an episode of the Refinery Podcast where I was actually on with a mutual acquaintance that we now have, Miss Lynetta Albright. And they might notice that I look a little different than I did then. And we'll talk about that. But, it was a health reason why I connected with you. And, but tell me, just kind of introduce what you do. And I really want to hear, you and I know each other in a certain way because, you've been kind of my guide in a journey, but our conversations have been very much about you guiding me through a process, not so much on the personal level, although it's hard not to share some personal things. And we're certainly going to do that here today. And, that's really our opportunity is to hear. So I want to hear now about your journey and, kind of just quickly explain what you do and then talk about how did you get into doing what you do now?
Sure. Let me first start by saying we have a little bit more of in common. You said your brother lives in Pennsylvania. I actually moved from Pennsylvania to South Carolina. So I have a connection to both Pennsylvania and South Carolina.
Got it.
In this area where Toby and Kim live. So I know that area very well. I've been in South Carolina with my wife when we went remote. It's always been a goal of ours to be down south. So that happened about 2.5 years ago.
Nice.
But my story goes back to high school.
Okay.
I was a very athletic kid growing up, but I was the smallest kid in every grade that I went to. In 9th grade, favorite sport was baseball. And the coach said I was too small. So he said, try a different sport, see if there's something else. And the only sport that I thought of that didn't really matter about height or weight or anything like that was wrestling.
There you go.
So 9th grade, I went out for the wrestling team, made the team. And my first weigh-in probably was the most discouraging of them all.
Okay.
They
Why
told me I
so?
was too light to wrestle.
So meaning they did not allow you to wrestle?
Yes, I didn't make. So you have to be within a certain weight to hit the minimum weight class. Back then, I'm 47 years old, so you can imagine how long ago that was.
Sure.
So it was very discouraging. I made the team. I went through all these practices, and I stepped on the scale, and they said that you're not actually heavy enough to be the lightest weight class.
Oh my goodness.
So very discouraging, and I got made fun of for that. I'd get picked on. I got bullied for about 4 years in school because of my height and my weight and all that. So I kept pushing. I did not give up. I didn't quit. I stayed on the wrestling team for 4 years.
Yeah.
But it was my sophomore year going in where the JV coach, Joe Davidson was his name, and he knew I was determined. He saw it. He goes, I want to help you. I don't do this for any other people, but you work your butt off in the weight room, and I know it's new to you. So he partnered me with a senior, and this senior basically took me under his wing and basically said, I'm going to show you how to protect yourself, gain weight, not get bullied all the time. And it was then that I just fell in love with, the gym.
Yeah.
Senior year or junior year, I had a setback. I got injured. I needed to have surgery. So I had to miss a whole year of wrestling season.
Okay.
But senior year, I came back and it was all about the gym and getting back. And that year, I became a starter.
Okay.
I went undefeated and
Nice.
ended up getting recruited for college, in Maryland. Decided to go a different route. I gave up wrestling to come to go to a college in Pennsylvania and actually play tennis. I got recruited for tennis as well. I was the number one tennis player at my high school. I was the number one tennis player at college. So the gym kind of allowed me to become a very good tennis player.
Sure.
So everybody always says, what'd you go to school for? And I say the story that I went to school to play tennis and I got a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's really bad, but I really did.
Yeah.
It was there that I really took to the gym, but understanding why I wasn't seeing as many gains as other people. I would work out twice a day and I'm like, why am I not getting any stronger? So finally I met another guy at the gym and said, what do you eat? I said, I eat whatever I want. Look at me. There's not much to me. I can eat whatever I want and I don't gain weight.
Right.
And he goes, well, that's your problem. You're not going to see the gains in the gym if you're not focusing on eating the correct way. So freshman year of college, I came home for winter break and I'm like, I got to figure out what he was talking about. Did some research and I'm looking at it. I mean, I'm, 18 years old. What do I really know?
Right.
So I was like, something's got to change. I want to get bigger. I can't be this, I graduated high school 105 pounds. I got to grow. I got to get bigger.
Right.
So went back and I started working out with another guy, and here from January to June, because I changed my eating, I gained 15 pounds of muscle in 5 months.
Wow.
I went back home that year for my brother's graduation, and I saw the light. I actually ran into kids that bullied me.
Right.
And they were actually now running the other way. That's when I knew that I found the passion. I found, what's going to get me through life physically and mentally. Because that mental trigger, like when I knew that I had the confidence that people now saw that and were running the other way and, they're not going to pick on me. I just full steam ahead. I actually went that September, sophomore year, applied to work at Gold's Gym as a, just behind a desk. And they saw, me working out, and the head trainer said, I will pay for you to get certified as a trainer here. You have a lot of determination. It looks like you know what you're doing. So he paid for my, certificate, and I became certified that year, 1998. I started training clients officially in 1999. And it was the best feeling in the world to actually tell people, and they listened. I wasn't trying to say, hey, I know it all, but showing people how to change things and seeing the results that they were seeing. Although I still didn't talk to them about nutrition.
Okay. Yeah.
That comes later on, but that comes later on because personal training, you can't really teach nutrition.
Right.
So fast forward now to 2007. Here's something you don't know about me. I am actually a model and an actor. I've been in movies. I've been in TV commercials. I've worked with Jamie Foxx before, Gerard Butler. So I did that because I got into a frame and then I became a bodybuilder. I'm actually a natural NAVA bodybuilder for 9 years. I've won my division 4 times. Um, and it was through a nutritionist that I met through that really sparked my interest of understanding how the body is fueled by food.
Sure. Okay. So which one of those came first? Like getting into the acting and modeling first, and then the bodybuilding with the association, or did you do the association first?
A little of both. I did 1 year of bodybuilding, and after that, I was approached by somebody saying, "Hey, you have a really good physique. Do you ever try doing any, modeling?" Here I'm like, well, no, I'm 5'5". What do you? They're like, no, fitness modeling is really big. You're in a good area. Philadelphia is known for some of that stuff. So
Yeah.
I was living in Pennsylvania at the time. So they're like, there's only one caveat because they knew about what I did. They said you can't bodybuild because you never know where you're going to get called. And with bodybuilding, you have to paint yourself and get really tan and stuff like that. So they said, it's up to you. What do you want to do? And I said, well, I just qualified for nationals. Let me do that, see how I go, and then I'll get back to you. So I went to nationals and I thought I would do better. I got fourth. When I'm like, okay, let me see what this modeling and acting thing is all about. So I took a year off to get involved into modeling and acting.
Sure.
The director of the modeling agency hired me on the spot. He said, hey, show me some of your photos, stuff like that. I actually took my shirt off at my interview, believe it or not. Because again, as a bodybuilder, he's like, that's not something that we see all the time. So he signed me on the spot. And I asked him, I said, hey, my passion is bodybuilding right now. I still want to be able to do it. Can I still do that? And he said, well, have you ever thought about acting? Because again, it doesn't matter. So it's like, no, nobody ever, I don't know how to read a script or anything like that.
Right.
So he taught me how to do that. So I got into that, but I was still able to bodybuild. So I took a year off bodybuilding and then got back into it while I was modeling and acting.
Okay.
So while I was doing that, I was doing fitness shoots for magazines. I was still competing and stuff like that. So it kind of went until 2012 when I met my now wife, Danielle, who is also the owner of the company. And I'll talk about that a little bit. So I retired. I won my last show. I retired from there. And I then started focusing on working with kids. Child obesity in the US, if you don't know anything about it, is a really big problem.
Sure.
So I started working with the director of the modeling agency. He got me hooked up with how to work with kids who kind of needed some more self-esteem, stuff like that. And it was going really well. We were helping a lot of kids understand, that there's a way to get over that the piece of paper that come back from the school every October and May, if you're familiar with that, where they send home the BMI things for your kids. And most of them say that they're fat or overweight or obese and they need to go see a doctor. And the kids' tears were just, every day. They don't want to talk to their parents about this. So they basically, said the parents help my kid. They won't talk to me. And we were doing this actually for free of charge just because I saw it as a pay it forward type thing for kids because I was in that shoot in a different way, right? I was too light and I worked my way up. And now these are kids that are too heavy and they wanted to kind of get healthy. So we did that for about 7 years.
Yeah.
And then my wife started having a lot of health issues.
Okay. Well, so let me hang on for a second. I want to catch up with a couple things on that. So this is just I'm just curious about this one. When you were doing the bodybuilding, was there any opportunity to make money as a bodybuilder, or was that not allowed as a part of that?
There was, the organization I did was a local organization. And so I did only local, competitions, but there's no organizations in bodybuilding. Obviously, if you're familiar with bodybuilding, they just had the Mr. Olympia about a month ago. The winner makes a lot of money there. But I was doing it more as a passion and not actually as a monetary win for me, or anything like that. So I just fell in love with it. And, as hard as it is, as disciplined as you have to be, as probably many friends I may have lost because I couldn't go out and hang out with them all the time because I was so restricted. Yeah, it was something that got me over my worst time, right? 18 getting picked on, but this just got me, and it is who I am now pretty much, on a daily basis, even though I'm not competing anymore. But I mean, people know me, that I can walk around and, I help people. People are like, oh, why are you bringing your food around? But bodybuilding was basically my priority, and it wasn't to make money. It was that it basically got me out of my darkest time.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, what occurs, I mean, I don't know. Have you ever read the book called Psycho-Cybernetics?
No.
You'd love it. There was a gentleman in the mid 20th century. He was a plastic surgeon. His name was Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And what he realized is that he could help people with their outer appearance, but there was a lot in their inner game that wasn't really changing. And so their lives weren't really moving forward. And I say that because, what you're expressing here is you were working not just on your physical appearance, man, it was changing your inner game. Right.
Yes.
Maxwell Maltz says, we never rise above the level of our self-image. And when you were talking about going back to high school and, people that were once, on the other end of the equation, we're now responding to you a lot differently. Right. And you were responding to you a lot differently. And so, you're kind of talking about the value of that was, for kind of remaking yourself on the inside. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel I'm self-made, I believe is what I use the terminology.
Sure.
Nobody taught me. I did have a nutritionist, but I taught myself, other than this guy, Joe Davison showing me the weight room. I taught myself how to stay healthy and be healthy and, make bodybuilding a part of my life, but not totally run my life like other people. I mean, I got out of it when I met my now wife. So it was a shift in lifestyle.
Sure. So, so when you got into helping young people, how were you connecting with them? Like what was the way in which you were able to, you were talking about being able to see their health reports and all that, but how did that connection happen?
So, face to face. So this was in Central PA at the time, actually in Lemoyne, Pennsylvania. The director of that modeling agency would allow me to use his building and do seminars. So we would send out, we would do seminars 3 times a year, mostly before the holidays, obviously before summertime, and then before school.
Okay.
Usually the three biggest times around most kids' lives, right? The holidays, food, summertime, they want to be able to hang out with their friends, and then back to school, they haven't seen people. They want to see if there's any changes. So that was the 3 times of the year that we would do these live seminars free of charge for the kids to come. And basically anybody that wanted to then learn more, then there was a little charge to actually do our plan, just to make sure, because what the director said was, you can do all these seminars for free, but to actually make something impactful, sometimes if you say, hey, put a little fee behind it, they'll be more determined to do it. So we didn't charge a whole lot. They were just kids. Believe it or not, for an hour session, it was only $50.
Yeah.
So it just started taking off. I mean, I did not realize, but it was also during the time of social media. So I was kind of battling that as well.
Yeah, right.
So, but it took off, and we were very successful with it. I think we helped a lot of kids. I don't have the exact number, but it's in the hundreds.
So let me ask this. So when you kind of started that, like you said, you didn't really start that as a money-making venture. So it was acting and modeling that was that what was paying the bills during that time?
No, I had a full-time job.
Okay.
So I did have a full-time job. So thank God for that. That was paying the bills and all that stuff. So yes, so I did have a full-time job. The seminars were only on weekends. Obviously bodybuilding I can do on my own, obviously, but the modeling and acting, if I had vacation days, I would use it. I had to go to Philadelphia for a shoot and stuff like that. I have very good, bosses at my job. I actually was my uncle was my boss. So it worked out well.
That helps.
So if I needed a day off to go to a shoot or to go to a casting, I did that. But then I would work with the kids on the weekends doing the seminars and, going if I had to meet them face to face.
Sure. So, when So would you say that it was this work with the kids that you kind of honed a system, or were you always using the same sort of static way, or were you figuring out some stuff as you worked with them?
We were definitely figuring out some things because kids are a lot different than adults.
Sure.
Again, we had only worked with kids. I had never worked with an adult other than personal training. I never told an adult what to eat, ever.
Right.
Okay. It was only the kids, and I use the word kids are sponges. They see what their parents are doing and stuff like that. So, the parents would always give the feedback. I eat bad. My kid's gonna eat bad because that's what they think is right. So I work with the kids to say, hey, don't have that, get in a different mindset. Don't have that, I got to eat what my parents eat. Try to force them to start shopping and thinking about it the right way. I was always in the mindset that adults, as they get old, they're not going to change their being. They're not going to change their way. But if I get to that kid right away,
Sure.
Look at me. It took me 18 years to figure out, how to flip that switch. If I can get to somebody a little bit sooner. So we started with 13. We worked with the youngest we work with is 13-year-olds. Went up. You hit that teenage years, you start seeing your body differently. Figure out different things. How do you look compared to somebody else? Always, was in their mind. So it was really just the kids figuring out how to get them to change the way they see food.
Sure.
And how they eat and stuff like that. And while they're still on social media as well, because they see a lot of things on social media. So we were doing, like I said, it was going very well for about, 6-7 years. And then a personal thing kind of put that on the side burner, but that personal thing is why we're here today.
Okay. So what year would that personal thing happen? When did that occur?
Right before COVID, believe it or not.
Okay. Yeah. So like 2019, 20. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. My wife started having problems physically with joints and weight, and just like something was going on with her, and we had no idea. We had paid thousands and thousands of dollars for doctors and testing and all this stuff, and the only thing they came back with was all your blood work is normal, everything looks good. In a matter of 4 years, she had 7 surgeries. On her joints. We did not, and I mean, literally, she was 38 years old.
Yeah. So what kind of surgeries was she having?
She tore her labrums in both her shoulders. She elbow problems, foot problems. Trying to be, just things that should not be going on in a 38-year-old. But then on top of that, the weight started coming up, and here she's working out with me, we're eating. We had no idea what was going on. So finally we just said we need to figure out. So she went to did a colonoscopy, came back normal. I'm like, if that's normal, what's going on? So we started doing some research. She actually started, reading a lot and figuring out what could possibly be going on. She would eat dinner and she would tell people, she's like, after dinner, an hour later, I look like I was 9 months pregnant.
That's wild. And so, by the way, would she at that time, all of these issues notwithstanding, would she have considered herself like a fitness oriented person? Like, did she go to, you were going to the gym and you were doing a lot. Was she doing that as well?
She wouldn't consider herself a fitness person.
Yeah.
She was doing it as like a couples thing, so we can spend time together. Because when we met, she knew exactly who I was. I mean, the bodybuilder. She knew, and she goes, so she wasn't going there like me, hardcore, but she went there. She did work out. I mean, I helped her and stuff like that. But to the point where we would go to the gym and she would come home crying because her wrist would hurt for no apparent reason. And it just getting worse and worse and worse, that she's just like, I want to spend time with you, but I can't go to the gym. I just, it's not the muscle soreness that she was complaining about.
Yeah. So she was digging in, and you were digging, because it sounds like all along your pathway, you've been kind of doing research all the time, right?
Yes. I mean, every day we're still learning. I mean, she does a lot more of it. She's the big reader. She's the big, listens to, podcasts and stuff like that for different things and stuff like that. I'm in the room, but she's the one that's doing the research. I'm just the frontline person because she doesn't like to be in front of a camera.
I get it. Yeah. No.
Yeah. So
Okay. So then obviously at some point after she's getting all these surgeries and you've done all these tests, colonoscopy, at some point something changed for her in a positive way, right?
2020.
Okay.
She started watching these people doing different healings and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the biggest skeptic. I'm not going to lie. I was just like, we just spent thousands of dollars on every possible program out there. Isogenics, these pills that they send you in the mail, these different food plans, and nothing worked. And she goes, I think it's because I'm taking all these pills and my body's not knowing because I'm doing all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
She goes, I just been watching people eat food. And I'm like, well, but that's what I've been telling you. And she's like, well, yeah, but you're my husband. I can tell you to go fly a kite. So she's like, I want to do this, but I don't want you to be my coach.
Okay.
I want to do this on my own. And literally to the point where we were doing our own grocery shopping.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. We live in the same house, but we're doing our own grocery shopping. I'm like, okay. And she goes, I want you to give me 6 months of saying absolutely nothing, doing nothing. I'm not going to the gym with you. If we have to eat dinner together, we're cooking our own meals. We're doing everything separate right now. And I want to see what happens over the 6-month period. And again, it was over COVID. So it also helped that we weren't going out anywhere.
Yeah.
So, because again, she would like to go out and socialize and stuff like that with friends and stuff like that. So I had a feeling there was also some alcohol things going, not that she's an alcoholic, but I think
there were some alcohol related responses that her body was having, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Correct.
Sure. Yeah.
And it wasn't every day, just on weekends, but COVID was probably the saving grace. I know not many people want to hear that, but for her, not going out, being in the house, her job allowed her to work from home for 6 months, being remote. So we really went nowhere. And in 4 months, she lost 80 pounds.
Wow.
And the amazing part is not one day did she leave the house to go to the gym.
Huh.
Yeah.
And you were still going.
I was still going
doing
5 days a week, doing my thing,
Yeah.
eating my own food, but she did her own thing. Literally, we had different sides of the refrigerator. That's how she was dug into this. Like, she's like, this is my side, that's your side. She, for 6 months, but the first 4. And the biggest story of this all was, it was right before we went on a cruise. 2 weeks before she started it, or 2 weeks into her plan. It was already planned. And she's like, I just want to see. She's probably the only person that I've ever seen lose weight on a cruise.
Yeah, right.
She brought her food scale with her. She told the chefs how she had to eat the certain foods. And I watched her and I cried because I didn't think she could do it. I mean, on a cruise.
Right.
And she did it for 7 days. And I was like, all right, she's got this. There's no stopping her.
Right.
Yeah. After she did all this, she goes, I'll never forget it. I was sitting watching, I think it was a football game. And she goes, I want to go back to school. And I'm like, you're nuts. What do you mean you want to go back to school? She goes, I want to become a nutritionist. And I'm like, what? I'm like, where is this coming? She goes, boy, there's so many people out there I know feel like I did.
Sure.
And there's probably so many people out there that there's no hope. That's it. And she used the word, she always used to say, there's no hope. You're a fat wife for the rest of your life. And she's like, no, there's hope. And she's like, I want to go back to school. What I did was I want to build more of an education to see what other layers I can build on top of that.
Yeah.
She goes, I just have one question. I want you to do it with me. Here, I'm like, wait, I already went to school. I already got my degree. She's like, I just know that with your personality, and if we can, and my story, we can build something.
Sure.
I'm like, all right. So we spent a year. We went back to a school for nutritionists.
Yeah.
And we got our certifications. And then she's like, well, I want to do specialty nutrition. Now I'm like, now you're getting crazy, woman.
Yeah. Right.
So she goes, well, I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, I want to do gut nutrition.
Okay.
I'm like, all right. So we signed up for some more classes.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I want to open a business.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not here because again, we both had full-time jobs at the time. Like, I just want to let people know that, there's something that we can do for them
Yeah.
that probably simple. So again, we weren't going to make any money. If you knew what our prices were when we first started this business,
Right.
your eyes would pop out.
Yeah.
We signed our first client a month after we became a business.
Okay. So, but yeah, and it's interesting because when she asked you to go back to school with her, she wasn't just asking you to do an education journey; it was an entrepreneurial journey. And
At the time, I didn't know. It was after we got and she's like, now I want to become a business. So it's not like she's like, we're going to school to open up a business.
Sure,
I had no idea what she was doing this for.
Yeah.
So we opened up the business May of 2021.
Yeah.
And our first client signed up in June because they knew us. They were our friend. They're like, I'll be your guinea pig. I'll sign up here. I'll pay the fee and all that.
Yeah.
And she did a 6-month plan with us and lost 85 pounds.
Wow.
From there, and she was our only client for 6 months. Nobody else was signing up. And I'm just like, it's a good thing we have full-time jobs here.
Yeah, right.
Not going very well. It wasn't until August of 22 that my best friend called me and said, hey, and he knew what Danielle's journey was like. He's like, I need your help. And I used to work out with him and stuff like that. He goes, I put on like 30 pounds in the last 2 months. I don't know what I've been doing. I think I've just been going out. So he's like, I don't want you to be my friend and do this. I want you to actually do this like you're a business guy. He's a business guy. So he hired us, more so my wife, and he lost 30 pounds in like 40 days.
Nice.
He did a testimonial for us. It's the very first testimonial we ever got. He actually did a video one. From there, I just call the floodgates opened up.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay. So then he's a big business guy in Central PA. He's a big commercial guy. He has a lot of property, so he knows a lot of people. So once that video got out on Facebook and Instagram, I got a phone call from somebody else. I got a phone call from somebody else. Got a phone call. So we ended 2022 with 12 clients. I didn't think we had 10 clients in 3 years.
Yeah.
We had 10 clients. So one of those clients did a Christmas Eve testimonial, another video on. And he's like, I'm doing this video because I was inspired by another video.
Sure.
That testimonial, the next 2 months later, in February, 35 people signed up in February.
Wow.
In 1 month.
In 1 month.
And it was, yes. And one of these people was a judge in Fulton County, PA. I'll never forget the day that he's like, I'm all in. You're not Thrive. You're not Weight Watchers. I'm all in on this. I've tried everything. I need to lose about 40 pounds. He ended up losing almost 90.
Wow.
Because of him, in 2023, we ended up with 155 clients.
Oh my goodness. Just from that one person.
From that one person. Well, because of him, and then he's got somebody, then somebody else heard about it.
Right.
But because so the trickle down
snowball,
effect. Snowball to today, we have signed or helped change 410 lives.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you're just getting warmed up.
Well, we think.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
We think. So, yes. So we hope, again, we're doing, again, it's our business, but we are doing this to help people, realize that as you get older, there is hope. There is a way to feel better, feel younger. I don't want to steal your thunder. I know you're going to talk about your story.
Sure.
But the biggest thing that we get from our clients is that you talk about a testimonial real fast, how much they probably saved in medical pills.
It's almost incalculable for some people, I'm sure, because it could quickly go into the hundreds of thousands of dollars for one individual. Easily in the tens of thousands. So look, let me just say this before we jump in. You mentioned that you don't even want to tell me what your fees were at the beginning, but whatever they were, first of all, they're not that much now. And when we're talking about like the potential savings that someone can have, it's a pittance. It is an absolute pittance. And look, I told you probably, so we're 4 months in. I started telling you at 1 month, I said, I'm going to bring other people to you. I'm going to, because look, it's like your college buddy, you start walking around looking different and people notice. I walked in a room today Walked in and someone said, "Hey, skinny," you know, right? They weren't calling me that
awesome.
4 months ago, at least not in a nice way. Right. So, people see the difference and they want to know what's going on. But look, if someone's like already connected to the story and sort of starting to get this, because I don't even, we're kind of getting warmed up here to like what this really means. I think, it's not the money. This is not about the money. And if someone's, it's amazing how many people. I just had a conversation today. And by the way, I would have said the same thing 4 months ago, and you probably would have, and your wife would have kind of before you did what you're doing now. I would have said, I know what to do. I'm just not doing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. And I don't have time. The biggest excuse is I don't have time.
And on some level, by the way, that's quite true. And, I certainly had prior to this other times where I was able to drop weight. And by the way, I don't know if you even know this, but we do share wrestling. I actually started wrestling at age 9 and went through college and wrestled. But I was no stranger to weight loss. My sophomore year of college, I showed up at college weighing 194 and wrestled at 158. So,
yeah.
But let me just tell you, the way I was losing weight then was not the healthy way at all. Yeah. And I would never do it again. What I did, I went 3 days without a drink of water. I mean, not even, and I couldn't even
and the wetsuits.
I couldn't even hardly stand up. So it is not at all the plan, but this works. And I'll just go back to it's not the money. It is really what happens. And I think that one thing I would say before I even tell about my own personal thing is, well, I'm sitting here today 50 pounds lighter than I was 4 months ago. And how did I do that? Well, I did it 1 meal at a time. Mm-hmm. Right? It was just 1 meal at a time. But so you've got over, you have hundreds of people that have done this, and there'll be hundreds more. And so let's just go back to that thought, because I'm going to talk about this in a moment. Like, I want to say 2 things. There's something that occurred to me. Okay. When you were talking about working with youth, you were working on a belief system where you said, oh, you have to start with people when they're young, because when they get older, they're not going to do anything different. Right.
Well, my mind has changed in the last 3 years. Let's just say that. Yes. That was my mindset back then.
Yeah.
I've learned, I've grown, I've seen that at any age, people can change.
Yeah.
So yes.
Yeah. And probably your wife up until a point was holding that same belief, right? Like,
yes, very much.
I mean, she said, you're just going to have a fat wife the rest of your life, right?
Correct.
Like so look, okay. So I think it's fair for me to kind of jump in and tell a little bit of my own journey at this point, and why this has been so pivotal and so revolutionary for me. And of course, a lot of this you're aware of. I've shared most of this, but maybe not all of this. And when we started, there's definitely, you have a process. It's a very good process, and it's highly structured, and I knew I needed that. And, again, it wasn't about the money. It was about having a structure and a process and someone to do it with, an accountability system. But, prior to that, I wasn't, probably having the severity of issues that, of torn ligaments and all of that. But look, I was not in a good way. And not only was I not in a good way, I was probably in the worst way I'd ever been in my life. I mean, in terms of just how I was doing physically. Of course, you're well aware that one of the biggest manifestations of my not good health, my ill health, was through gout. And that I had actually gone through a couple of different phases where, I had a phase where I had about gout for about 3 or 4 weeks. And then, once we got started, I'd been about 5 or 6 weeks into another phase. I mean, I had a 1 week hiatus in there. And so, anyone who's had that, yeah, I mean, I had someone talk to me about it the other day and said, when I had it the last time, like I didn't even want a fan to be blowing on me because it was just like the wind, it's miserable. It's a miserable thing, but look, beyond that, that's anyone who's ever had that understands, right? But it wasn't even that. It was what you're talking about. Like, look, what's clear from anyone who's watching this is you are a quite driven person. Like you have a drive, you have a determination to do all of the things that you've done. And we share that, so I've been pretty driven all my life. And like you did sports, but there was something different. Okay. So backing up just a little bit, in 2022, I actually did drop a bunch of weight, worked out every single morning, and I was getting ready for a cross-country trip with my youngest son. And I did great through till about October, and then, gained everything back. And I was heavier when we started, I was as heavy as I've ever been in my life. And it wasn't just that, and it wasn't just the gout. It was like I was starting to add in all these medications and all these diagnoses, and things that, and look, I grew up with my father who had heart issues from the time I was 10 years old when he had his first open heart surgery. I've watched family members get, their health just like goes down the vortex, and the number of prescriptions just keep increasing. And I was always like in my mind, not me, I'm not ever doing that. And then here I was, and that's where I found myself. Right. And so not just that I was disappointed that, what is going on. Here's kind of my inner game, my inner world is, for the first time ever, I was really allowing despair to kind of take charge. Like the concept of this is it. Like there is no hope. It's like your wife saying, you're just going to have a fat wife. You're right. I mean, so here was kind of where my inner world was going. This is it. Like I can't, I'm not going to beat the system. I'm not going to, and in 10 years from now, instead of Kate and I doing, like all the stuff we've dreamed of doing for all these years, cause we love to travel and go do stuff. And, we've always had this idea, okay, well, someday we're going to, travel and we're going to go see baseball parks and sports parks and national parks. Right. And, so we love being outside and we love sports and all that. But, I'm in my mind, I'm like, no, it's gone. It's gone. And this is what I was expecting. In 10 years, here's what's going to happen. Kate's going to be taking care of me. Right. And that was where I was. And I wasn't saying that out loud. I'm talking about that conversation going on the inside. And also, okay, like I'm sitting in my studio right now, and, if I would get up and walk down the hall, I was very aware that I was miserable, and I was making, and anywhere I was, I'm making like the typical old man noises, that sort of stuff was just increasing, and all kind of other things, where like people are responding to you differently. Honestly, it's kind of like going back to, when you're in high school and you don't weigh enough to make weight, right? I was just very aware that people responded to me differently. Not that long ago, we had a photo session that we did, and I almost can't even stand to look at those pictures, right? And I remember one pose that I did, and I'm like, why did that photographer even have me make that pose? Like it was so bad, right? But, and it's not her fault. I'm just saying, look, I just was miserable, okay? And I was miserable in a way that I just wasn't actually accustomed to. I wasn't used to, and I was kind of acquiescing, right? But then, I'm complaining so a couple things were happening. Well, my wife knows my personality, and she just kept dropping these hints, I think you'd feel better if you lost some weight. I don't want to, I don't want to bug you. And I'm like, when I'm ready, I'm ready. And when I do it, I'm going to do it all the way. And so, and then my brother started saying, Rick, I know you might want to talk to Andy. Like maybe you guys should just, entertain the idea. And so it took a couple months of that. And, but I will say this, okay. While there was that part of me that was kind of in despair, there was another part of me that said, this is it. Like when I do this, I'm not turning back. Right. And I said out loud to myself, the first day we started, which I said was July the 8th, and I stepped on the scale higher than I ever have been in my life. I said to myself after I got on the scale, did the thing, started out, drove to the office, and on the way here, I said out loud, never again. Like, I will never weigh that weight again in my life. And so, look, we're 4 months in, and I've said to you, I was that there's nothing more zealous than a convert. But look, I mean, I started. It was about a month in when I started realizing, what was I doing? And by the way, I didn't say this, but you're aware of this. But people should know, like, I'm not just saying that I felt bad or whatever, or was making noise. I'm like, any kind of measurement of my health was not good and worse than it had ever been, and getting worse. And it took about a month in when my labs started coming back clear, and everything went from the outskirts to the middle, right? And I had then another lab subsequent to that where, confirmed the same thing, and hopefully I'll have another one here coming up pretty soon just to see again and have all those measurements. But I kind of got to that place where I had that first lab, and that's when I started getting kind of like ticked off, like a little kind of a righteous indignation. And I think this is important because all of that time, which for me was too long, okay, and probably for me, maybe compared to other people, I didn't sort of stay in that place of despair as long as other people have and gotten used to it, but I was there all that time. I had no idea how close I was to better health, right? No idea. And it's like you think about your wife and her story and all the time that she spent, at the doctors and the money and all of that. And really in a relative short period of time, how much her life changed, and then all of the other people since then. And I'm certainly one of those people. And so I'm sharing this because I understand, like, there are people that are going to see this and they're going to go, yeah, like, if they're being honest with themselves, like that's kind of the battle that's going on. Right. And I'm just saying, look, listen to the voice that tells you it's possible, right? Listen to the voice of other people's stories, and it can be done. It's not the money. It's one meal at a time. It's what you do. And look, I don't want to, dominate the conversation here, but also, I think there's a couple of other things that are definitely relevant to this. And that is that not only, I was not only like adding in all these medications, like I've always tried to do like more of a natural thing. I mean, I don't, how many supplements do you think I was taking when we first started?
Well, supplements plus medications.
Well,
I
if
guess,
just
right?
the
'Cause
supplements alone. Yeah.
I think I lost track of, like, I think there were 6 that you had written down, 7 maybe that you had written down of straight supplements. Yes.
Yeah.
I think 6 or 7 roughly.
Yeah. A lot.
I'm probably still know some of them. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, I'm not trying to make an argument for or against them. I'm just talking about my experience. And that is for almost the last 2 months, maybe a month and a half at least.
60. Day 60. I know what you're about to say.
Yeah. I haven't taken any supplements, no medication, none, with a very few exceptions. And then I'll just say this other part because, we were able, Kate and I, we knew when we started with you that Kate and I had this trip on the books, this trip to Italy. And, that was part of our plan. Kate, by the way, did a 3-month thing, and I intentionally did 6 months to get through that and through the holidays. And so but we had a plan as a part of what we're doing for how I was going to address that. And so I'll say 2 things about that. And that is that, I besides it being an incredible trip, I can't imagine how different that trip would have been if I took it in June. I mean, there was one day where we walked almost 15 miles. Right. And I just can't imagine like how that whole experience would have gone. So I was quite aware when I was there that, and look, people can take this how they want to take it, but I don't mind saying this. Part of what was really bothering me, besides all of the physical things that were bothering me, is that this is how I sum it up. I did not have the body that my spirit belongs in. Right. And so there was a part of me that said, this is not all. I've got more things to do. There's more potential. There's more opportunities here. And I've got to have the body that can match those opportunities. And so, I would just say that trip was definitely one of those opportunities that, I had gone from wondering whether my wife was going to have to take care of me the rest of my life to I'm good. And then I'll just say this last thing and then let you respond to all that. We knew I would probably come back heavier in weight than I was, and I did, right? And then about 4 days later, I actually hit a new low once I returned, right? So look, I'm only saying that because you're very clear. This is not a weight loss program, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We measure weight. We're looking at that, but this is about gut health. And see if confirm or deny what I'm about to say. The work that I did prior to the trip, and also the place where we went had food that was like from 5 miles away or less. So it's not the American diet.
Mm-hmm.
But the setup that I gave my gut, even though I was gaining some weight, made it a lot easier for me to go back down and kind of get back to the same place before I left. Am I saying that right?
You are correct, because you also allowed your gut to heal prior to going, but you also were conscious while you're in Italy. Yes, they have different foods out there. You still kind of said, hey, I want to try different things. This is my plan. But you probably had a different mindset, if I'm not mistaken, about food.
Yeah.
And it wasn't one of those things like, yeah, we only focus on these types of foods, or, we know, hey, we can have those, but let's have the healthy foods first.
Right.
And again, you said you walked 15 miles. I don't care, if it was a weight loss thing that helps you with the 15-mile walk, it's probably the food that you were eating that was fueling you to keep going and keep going and keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So
I believe Kate lost weight even when she came back from
she did, and she also hit a new low when she came back. And for us, it's like when you think about just the weight by itself, if we only took that measurement of this journey, we're at weights that we haven't been. And I think I told you it had been at least 20 years from me. Kate and I are getting ready for our 28th anniversary, and hers is probably, definitely pre-kids, and our oldest son is 23, right? So, and look, it isn't just about the weight. It's every single area of our lives. I would argue cognitively, I'm sharper. My ability to focus is much more sustained. I would say that, anything of mobility. Now I'm actually still kind of in process. So I haven't gone back to the gym actually yet.
Correct.
So I'm, there's phases to this. But if I'm doing anything physically, I feel up to the challenge. Now I will say, let's be the one. Well, okay. First of all, it took me a while for the gout to clear up, right? It took me, how long did it take me to kind of get past the symptoms of that?
I thought it was, I believe at your 60-day assessment, you said that it's been weeks since you've had any flare-ups.
Yeah. It took a little while, and, cause it's a process, but that took a little while. And then, the other things that I've experienced physically is some cramping, which you gave me an easy remedy for, and getting lightheaded, which another easy remedy for. So look, let's talk about, we could compare that to the side effects of other things. And I don't know is that a typical thing? Like, does that typically happen with people? Is it common for people to experience those two things?
So in the beginning, you've heard me talk about a word that you usually only hear when you hear about, drug addicts or alcoholics, and they check into something and they're detoxifying their body.
Yeah. Right.
most Americans, it's not about those types of drugs that everybody thinks about or alcohol. Most Americans are all drug addicts because of the chemicals in the that are in the foods or what we get addicted to.
Sure.
Sugar is a chemical, caffeine is a chemical. So so everybody, when you're healing your gut, goes through some kind of detoxification, something like that. Where if your body is so used to and you're addicted to something, if you don't do it, your body's like, what's going on here, Rick? Why are you not giving it to me? But for most people, it lasts maybe 3 to 5 days. Are there ever episodes, as we get through the phases where you do different things? It can happen, but it's not one of those things where, it's going to always reoccur. Cramping could have been maybe you were just so used to having way too much salt in your body. And as we were kind of like figuring out, how to fix that with water, maybe your muscle was just like, hey, the cells. And like you said, it was a quick fix. We got that fixed. The lightheadedness, yes, that could just be that imbalance of, the chemicals and stuff like that. Quick fix. I don't think you've, had that in a while. So there are certain things that still our body, we don't really truly know why it happens. I can get out of bed one day and be like, okay, why? And I'm pretty healthy for the most part. I think I'm probably one of the healthiest people,
right, for sure.
But it's just one of those things that one day, like 2 weeks ago, I woke up in the middle of the night with a calf cramp. I don't know where it came from. And it lasted 2 days. I tried every remedy under the sun, and it's just something, I've never had a calf cramp in my life, even after working out. So it's one of those things that something, or we just don't know. But as you heal your gut, it definitely changes the whole platform of not just physical, but like you said, the mental part as well. And that's why with my wife, again, she no longer says you have that fat wife. She doesn't have that. She has more confidence now. She wears bikinis now when I met her, she wasn't even wearing bikinis and stuff, even when she was smaller. Now that's all she owns. So it's more of a mental confidence thing. She's like, hey, I got the physical look, but mentally I feel confident enough to do this and wear this. And we have clients that they told us that they would never wear a sports bra in their photos. And the photos obviously are the ones that you guys have to take. And that's all they're wearing now in their photos. I mean, obviously I don't share them with anybody, but I mean, it's a confidence thing. You see it physically, but then the mental part is like, hey, I'm not that person I was 1 month, 2 months, 3 months ago.
Well, look, I mean, what I figured out that, I think what I'm about to say, people would intellectually like, oh yeah, of course I know that. But, the health of the body resides mostly in the gut.
Well, yes. Right. I mean, obviously the gut is where the food is broken down. It's not your heart. It's not your brain. It's not your liver. The gut is what breaks down the food. And everybody always, we always say 80%, 90% of your health is in the kitchen. That's basically what we say.
Health of the body is in the gut, and health of the gut is in the food that we put in or don't. Right.
Correct.
And, so, and look, I mean, I'm sharing like some of the, I wouldn't even call them side effects, but some of the things that I've certainly experienced along with this, not even close in comparison. Every area of my life is better. And, I haven't lost my zeal to sustain it. And, and I think that, what I like about what you're offering to people is the opportunity for a complete lifestyle change. Right. And one that can have massively beneficial consequences. So, okay, so let's just for a bit, let's kind of wrap up with a couple of thoughts. Like, if you were just to like top of the waves, kind of characterize what we're talking about here, like what you do with people, like what is it? Because maybe people are listening to this is great, but what did he actually do? So just kind of give a top of the waves overview of that. And then let's talk about, people connecting with you.
Sure. Absolutely. So first and foremost, we keep talking about your weight loss, which is unbelievable, but you also talked about the other things that go on. We are not a weight loss company. Okay. We are not that. And we tell people why we're not that, for, a couple of reasons. So we get into all that when we meet with the people, but we are not a weight loss company. As I said, we are nutritionists and we focus on the gut. And what do? We basically teach people to have a better relationship with food.
Mm-hmm.
We hear way too many times, I comfort eat, I emotional eat, I stress eat, I eat out of boredom. But if you have a better relationship with food, my wife has the best saying, I think, and it's probably not her saying, I'm sure a lot of people say it,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to eat to live, not live to eat.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So give your body the food that will allow you to, live and do things that you weren't able to do. One of the things, again, we also said why my wife did this is she didn't want to be the grandmother. Yes, we are in our 40s and our grandparents. But she didn't want to be that grandma in a rocking chair.
Sure.
She wanted to be the grandma on the floor, rolling around with the grandkids. Prior to this, she would not have been able to do that. Now, that's all she does. And she goes as long as the kid. And if you have grandkids and 2 years old, they don't want to go anywhere but just 100 miles per hour.
Sure.
But we teach you it's not just a physical thing, it's a mental thing.
Mm-hmm.
The gut controls both the physical and the mental. And you talked about it, Rick, about the physical energy you have that you went that 15 miles. And would you have been able to do that back in June? But it's also the mental part.
Sure.
And the mental part is what you talked about, the mental clarity you have. We have a lot of people who have problems sleeping, and it could be from what are they putting in their body at a certain time at night.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of not only just give you a plan. So we're not just one of those people like, hey, Rick, here's your plan. See you in 30 days. Good luck.
Right.
We feel that what we've learned in our education, we want to pass on. So then if you're not working with us later on in life, again, this is a lifestyle. You may not need us for your whole life, but you have tools, right? You become like that construction person.
Yeah.
If they're going to go pull out a wrench when they need a hammer, that's not the right tool, but we're going to give you the tools to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, will people go off kilt once in a while, but you don't have to say that one day I cheated or I went off plan.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't have to turn into 1 week, 1 month, 1 year. We hear that way too often. Well, I cheated the one day and there was nobody to tell me I did something wrong.
Yep.
Then that one day became 1 week. I'm not here to judge anybody, and you probably know this. I'm not going to tell you, Rick, you cheated one day, I'm done with you.
Right.
I'll be like, Rick, one day. There's 365 days in the year.
Mm-hmm.
One day does not dictate if you're going to pass or fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we teach our clients. And everybody's always like, you're talking about the holidays. There's 2 holidays coming up this year. They're 2 days out of 365. You know what? People want to, again, we do have certain parameters if you're just starting, as you know, that we want you to stay on plan. But if it's after, we kind of say it's 1 day, understand what you're putting in your body that day, and get back on track. Well, I'm not your principal. I'm not going to be your mom or dad and slap your wrist or anything like that.
Sure.
We'll talk through it, and that's what we do. So it is a thing that we do to educate people on why it's important to treat your gut the right way.
Yeah.
And what foods treat your gut the right way, so it'll treat you the right way, and for you to actually, like I said, have that hope or have that ability to change what isn't right for the last 40 years, 50 years, whatever.
Yeah.
We just signed our oldest client of 83 years old.
Nice.
She never thought she'd be able to change, and she's already changing. And she's just like, I feel like I'm in my, 60s and 50s again.
Yeah.
So yes, my mind has definitely changed, Rick, from kids can change to now I can change. I just changed an 83-year-old woman.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And look, you have going from kind of your roots of, figuring out stuff, working with kids, and then your wife's journey and then the schooling and all the education that you did. You're at a point where you do have, this is a system, like you do have a systematic approach.
Yes.
And our experiences, like there are parts of that system, like we weren't just following a system, like we were sort of figuring out the principles and the rules and all of that. So it probably took us about 2 weeks to sort of figure out, like, here's sort of the rules of the game. And, because again, we were going for something that was sustainable, which I definitely recommend, but it is great to have the healthy level of accountability that you provide. And also though, it is, I think I would encourage anyone who's doing it is, look, you got to internalize sort of system as quickly as you can, like understand how it works. And by the way, I don't know if people tell you this, but one of the things that Kate and I have both remarked on is we're a lot quicker in knowing what our bodies are telling us that they need. And so,
Yes.
right, there's a lot more like, oh, I need to do a little extra something here, or I need to do less. And, like I recently had something that I did and it was like pretty quickly, everything in my body was saying, yeah, no, that's not it, man. Drop back away from that. But now I know, right? And, simple enough. But it's not that I just had a list of rules. It was, I knew how to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. So, definitely, as this airs and as it goes out, I will give people the way to contact you. I'm sure if it's there, you do offer like for people that get referred some kind of a thing. I didn't ask you to do that, and you can do whatever you want, but, look, I wanted to do this because I know, just like me, there's a lot of people out there who, where I was in that sort of place of despair, and they've got big goals and big dreams, and it's worthwhile. We're worthy of our dreams, and it's a worthwhile journey, and it is different. I would say that I knew definitely before this that if I was going to have the body that my spirit belonged in, it was going to have to seem radical compared to the typical American diet and the typical American way of doing things. And so it really isn't that radical. In fact, it's the radical part is that it's quite natural. I would say if I was describing sort of the top of the ways, I say, well, you eat natural stuff. I mean, that's one of the big sort of definitions of what's going on, but, it's worthwhile. So, yeah. So, all right. Anything we have left unsaid, or any other thoughts?
The only thing I will say is, whoever sees this, you can't force anybody to do it.
Yep.
They have to want to do it for themselves,
100%.
but they have to be in that mental state to do it, because change is not easy. And, you have to get over that hump of, are you not doing it because you're making excuses? Are you doing it because you are that person that feels there's no hope? So until you get out of that mental block that you can't do something, that's when you can do this plan. I will never reach out to anybody, as you know. You reached out to me first. I don't reach out to anybody because I don't want to make it sound like you're unhealthy. You have to sign up with me.
Yeah, right.
You need to make that conscious effort to contact me, because you're the one that wants to make that change. So that's what I will say. So if anybody ever approaches you saying, hey, I got this great idea to lose weight or to make yourself feel better, that's just them selling something. You have to be the one, or whoever it is has to be that one that makes that decision for themselves.
100%.
We won't do it.
Yep. I agree. I totally agree. I think that's well said. And I would just one little bit, I would say, you got to do it for you.
Absolutely.
It was nice for Kate and I that we decided to do it together, but it's kind of like your wife said, like, I just need you to like get out of my way, because I got to do this for me. Like, give me 6 months, because it wasn't really for you, right? It was for her, and it is a you and you deal, and so I think everybody kind of has to come to terms with that. But look, it works. We're talking about it because it works. Yeah. So
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you so much for being involved in the podcast here, and definitely I'll look forward to being able to share this with people and make sure people can get in touch with you.
Yeah, we always say we want an actual person to show other people what they do, and that's why we don't advertise or market. It's through real people like yourself doing the plan, the testimonials, like you said, there's on our website and our Facebook, and listen to what other people that you are dealing with went through or going through, and how they became successful. And that's why we do that. We don't have billboards. We don't do advertisements. We allow real people to speak their own words and explain their own journey, because everybody's body is different.
For sure. For sure.
Yes.
Well, thanks so much. And I'll look forward to continuing the journey with you and see where it goes.
Likewise, same thing. And thank you for having me.
You bet. Bye for now.
All right. Take care.